In a small, remote town in the Middle East, there stood an ancient madrasah Islamic school that had been abandoned for decades. The elders of the town often warned children to stay away, saying that it was haunted by jinn who once lived among the students and teachers. Legend had it that a student had disappeared there one night after venturing into the madrasah's underground library, a place said to hold forbidden books of magic and secrets of the unseen. Aisha, a university student visiting her grandparents in the town, had always been skeptical of such tales. She was studying anthropology and had a keen interest in folklore. When she heard about the madrasah, she decided to investigate it for her thesis. Despite her grandparents' stern warnings, she convinced her cousin Hamid to accompany her one afternoon. The madrasah was hidden behind overgrown trees and crumbling walls. As they approached, an overwhelming sense of stillness hung in the air. The gates were rusted shut, but Hamid managed to push them open with a loud creak. Inside, the air was thick with dust, and the once beautiful architecture was now cloaked in decay. Arabic calligraphy adorned the walls, though much of it was faded and cracked. The two explored cautiously, with Aisha taking pictures and jotting notes in her journal. When they entered the main prayer hall, they noticed something strange. The room felt colder, and an inexplicable pressure weighed on their chests. In the center of the hall was a tattered prayer rug, as if someone had been praying there recently. "This place is giving me the creeps," Hamid muttered. Aisha, though uneasy, was determined. "Let's check the library. That's where the most stories come from." They found the library in the basement. The door was slightly ajar, as though inviting them in. The room was dark, with shelves of old, rotting books. Aisha lit a lantern she had brought, illuminating the room in a dim, flickering glow. As she browsed the books, one caught her eye. It was bound in dark leather, with no title on the cover. When she opened it, the pages were filled with strange symbols and passages written in a language she couldn't recognize. Suddenly, a low whisper echoed through the room. At first, she thought it was Hamid, but when she turned, his face was pale, his eyes wide with terror. "Aisha," he whispered, "we need to leave, now." Before she could respond, the whispering grew louder, as though multiple voices were speaking at once. The lantern flickered violently, and the shadows on the walls seemed to move on their own. Aisha clutched the book, but Hamid grabbed her arm. "Drop it, we have to go." Reluctantly, she let the book fall to the ground, and they bolted up the stairs. As they ran, the walls of the madrasah seemed to close in on them, and the whispers turned into a deafening roar. When they reached the main hall, they froze. Standing on the tattered prayer rug was a figure shrouded in black, its face obscured. It raised a hand and pointed at them, and the roar stopped, replaced by an eerie silence. Hamid began reciting Ayat al-Kursi, his voice trembling. The figure remained still but seemed to dissolve into the shadows as he continued. Gripping each other's arms, they ran out of the madrasah and didn't stop until they were back in the village. That night, Aisha was restless. She couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed them. In her dreams, she saw the figure, standing at the foot of her bed, its shadowy hand reaching for her. She woke up screaming, her grandparents rushing to her side. Her grandfather recited Quranic verses over her and sprinkled blessed water around the house. "You should never have gone there," he said. "That place is cursed. The jinn that dwell there don't take kindly to intruders." The next day, Aisha felt ill. Strange bruises appeared on her arms and legs, and she was plagued by whispers that no one else could hear. Her family brought a local imam, who performed ruqyah, spiritual healing, for days. Gradually, the whispers faded, and her health improved. Aisha never returned to the madrasah, but she couldn't forget what she had seen. The pictures she had taken were blurred, and her notes from that day were unreadable, as though the ink had been smudged by an unseen hand.